Hello, I'm the Reverend Bill Selazny, and I welcome you to Channing Memorial Church 2021 Summer Service Program. We feel spiritual when we sense a deep connection with something greater than ourselves, with the natural world, with those who have gone before us, with the creative spirit, with God. Spiritual moments are direct experiences of transcending mystery and wonder. This direct connection with transcendence is an important source of religious learning and experience for Unitarian Universalists. Sometimes these transcending moments catch us by surprise. A sunset takes our breath away. We share a moment of connection with a stranger. We discover a creative insight. And sometimes, even though what is a tragic moment in our lives gives us a transcending feeling. This is what our presenter will be talking about today, finding spiritual gifts even in the midst of extreme physical trauma. We can nurture spirituality in whatever circumstances happen if we allow space between the moments of our lives, taking time to pause and to reflect about what has come out of an event, what the results of an event is for us emotionally, physically, and spiritually. Our chalice lighting words today come from that Weineke. May this flame, symbol of change and transformation throughout time, fire our curiosity, and light a path to new knowledge and wisdom as we open our minds and our hearts to that which is around us this day and every day. Our presenter today is the Reverend Phil Schulman. I met Phil when we were in seminary together. I have always admired his dedication to social justice issues, especially peace and human rights, and his desire to help individuals work through personally troubling times, such as with addiction. For a number of years, he was very active in what is called a peer counseling movement. However, in 2017, Phil was struck by a truck as he was riding his bicycle. His recovery has taken several years, but as he will discuss in his talk, the whole experience has given him a new perspective on spiritual gifts that can come to us sometimes in the most unexpected way. I present to you Reverend Phil Schulman.
Good morning. Thank you, Reverend Zelazny, for inviting me to be a guest minister in your summer program. Reverend Z has been giving me a glowing report of your vibrant congregation. The warmth and acceptance you practice reaches me now as I began to share. I will share with you my experience of receiving post-traumatic spiritual gifts, PTSG for short. This story starts with a near-fatal accident. My bicycle and I were hit by a half-ton Dodge Ram truck. The collision broke many of my bones and collapsed my skull. A cop called to the scene of the accident later said, "I can't believe that he lived." During the next year, people witnessed my recovery and told me how amazingly well I was doing. I needed reminders. When asked how I was doing, I would say, better than I realize. Feel free to try this phrase yourself. You might be doing better than you realize too. It has taken effort to cultivate an attitude of gratitude. This next story illustrates my point. Zadie was a Jewish grandmother that didn't always get along with her daughter Elaine. It was no small matter when Elaine allowed Zadie to take Moishi to the beach. Zadie and Moishi were having a grand old time sitting in the sand, not far from the water's edge. It nourished Zadie's heart to see the joy and excitement of her little grandson's face each time the water reached them. All of a sudden, a huge wave hit. It grabbed Moishi and pulled him out to sea. Zadie began screaming, "No, no, no!" Under her words was a plea to God, "Do not let this happen." Another wave rose up and spit Moishi right back where he had been. Zadie grabbed her grandson, her heart pounding as she cried tears of relief. She tended to the boy, and after a minute, she looked at his head and then looked up to the heavens, gesturing once more to Moishi's head. She spoke to God. He had a hat! I always loved this joke. And then it took on new meaning for me. I could relate to Zadie. I lost quite a nice hat. By the way, I'm also Jewish, a UU Jew. I got chills when it was pointed out to me that my truck encounter collision happened right outside the gates of the Jewish cemetery. I didn't want to go through life griping because I lost a hat. Fortunately, things I learned along my spiritual journey prepared me to receive post-traumatic spiritual gifts. I learned that we have the power and freedom to choose the perspective on our life experiences that gives us the most satisfaction. Had I believed that the truck encounter would end the quality of my life forever, then that might have come true. Instead, I chose to believe that the best was and still is yet to come. I gained consciousness a few days after the accident, and I discovered that I could not speak. The staff looking at my medical charts called me Philip. I couldn't say, "Call me Phil." To them, I was Philip. The name stuck. While many people were wondering how much permanent damage had been done to my brain and body, I reclaimed all of my name. I was asserting, it was a way of asserting that I would be my full self. When I speak of receiving post-traumatic spiritual gifts, I'm not trying to gloss over, dismiss, or deny the reality of post-traumatic stress. The very definition of the word trauma means that there is lingering, harmful psychological effects. I have experienced post-traumatic stress, nightmares, emotional volatility, and flashbacks. I've had all manner of skilled assistance to help me heal. I'm still healing and recovering. I want people to know that along with the adversity, I have received an abundance of wonderful gifts. Even in the first week, which was certainly one of the most horrible times in my life, I found myself amazed at the experience. It was like the yin and the yang symbol. Even in the worst of times, there was this little dot with an incredible, wonderful quality, something that I wanted to remember. I noticed the quality of the energy in me as I cleaved to life and God. I've often heard the term foxhole prayers used disparagingly. I experienced the power of the intense fear and urgency in me. I saw myself as about as powerless as I could be, and I was longing for a connection to greater power. I have always been a praying person, yet I could find no prayers in my muddled head. I gestured with my hands to the med techs and the cleaning staff, and they came to my bedside and prayed with and for me. This was very meaningful and soothing. I was experiencing such vulnerability. I was dependent upon strangers to meet my every need. When they were there for me, I was moved almost to tears. I received powerful lessons in reaching out and receiving help. I'm still unpacking this gift. I didn't want to be dependent. I still don't. Self-reliant, right? No. I learned how good it could be to receive help. And my recovery began. Oddly, I had written, preached, taught, counseled, facilitated support groups in the field of recovery for 30 years. For 37 years, I have learned everything I could about recovery, nutrition, fitness, spirituality, psychology, trauma, and there I was in the intensive care unit. It seemed to me that I knew nothing about what I was facing. Soon I realized that I would need to draw on everything I had learned and more. Trauma cracked open the shell that kept me insulated from a deep sea of suffering all around us. People tried to relate to me with the story of their accident, their injury, their operation, or about their loved one's disease, condition, or pain. In my years as a counselor, I've been able to sit with people needing support and bring a calm faith. After my accident, I was too raw, and the stories rattled me. I call this a gift too, because it introduced me to a new world. The Dalai Lama said that every experience offers us a choice to harden our hearts or to grow in compassion. I trust that I will grow in my ability to be of service to people trapped in the narrow spaces that constrict freedom and soul force. I have needed to grow in my capacity for self-compassion. When things got really rough in my recovery, and I would wish that someone would rescue me, I would reaffirm my commitment to bring compassion, compassionate presence to me, to myself, as I have done countless times for others. The great spiritual gift is learning to accept myself when I don't seem to have the skill, the power, or the ability that I need or think I need. Acceptance of myself as a person now with profound disabilities, this didn't come easily and it hasn't come perfectly. It's just that my needs, in the beginning, my needs were so great, I had no time to wallow. The tasks of each day required every bit of my energy. I later described to a friend how I managed to pull off a long and miraculous recovery. I told her it was like being out in the water about to drown and then spotting the shore. All I could think about was getting to the shore. I was willing to go to any lengths to recover. It's something I learned long ago and put to use when I needed it most. This gift has helped me to face more adversity and challenge in the past few years. Often I have longed for ease, for rest, a support, enough challenge already, right? And there's all the suffering, so much suffering on the planet that I think I'm more in touch with, or it rattles me more, as I said. And sometimes it just seems too much to bear. That's when I figured I just need to make to the shore. I tell myself, you have been through worse. Just take the next step and trust that more will be revealed. I'm grateful for learning about disability rights and challenging the ableism that seems to me the sea in which we swim. I've been learning, seeing new possibilities for human liberation. I noticed that people tended to become uncomfortable seeing me struggle when I was really struggling. Our discomfort with our own thoughts and attitudes about disability, it gets in the way of getting close, of appreciating and being allies to each other, especially to people with disabilities, which is a lot of us. During the next 6 months, I was using a wheelchair, and people didn't hesitate to move me without my consent. It was as if I was an object. Granted, my speech wasn't great, better than it was, a lot worse than it is now. And that did make it harder. But still, one place I received many gifts was a fitness program for people with mental and physical disabilities. The vast majority of the athletes in Fit for All had major developmental and intellectual disability. It was a bit like training for the Special Olympics. At first, I was sad about my new identity, where I found myself. This is where I found myself. After 9 months, my progress was significant. I shifted from being a program participant and became a personal assistant or trainer for the other athletes. For the next 2 years, I served, and I was taught by the beautiful athletes that had been my peers. A year and a half after the accident, I had a different kind of experience. I was giving a keynote address at a National Alternatives Recovery Conference. Near the conference was an enormously newly renovated cathedral. On the ceiling was a huge painting of Jesus. This Jesus had a Nordic looking face and muscular, outstretched arms. Mine are not very big arms, that floated above the sanctuary. I had a problem with this. Come on, Jesus was probably a skinny, dark-skinned Jew. He was somebody that questioned authority, advocated for society's marginalized people. He got beat up, crucified in a grand public humiliation intended to keep all Jews meekly submitting to Roman occupation. But nowadays, we can't have a skinny crucified Jesus lording over us. He-Man Jesus. In 2016, a campaigning presidential candidate expressed these values about his rival John McCain. He said, "I don't like losers. He's a warrior because he was captured. I like people who were never captured." Although my desire to recover from my injuries was great, I cherish the months when people's first impression of me was probably a wheelchair, and my speech impediment was greater. I imagined a kinship with other people who have disabilities. I mourned the loss of membership with an exceptional community that I called the Fellowship of Crips when I no longer needed the wheelchair. And my disabilities became invisible or not so glaring that I could now pass as a normal, able-bodied person. My PTSD has pushed me to accept myself as disabled, imperfect, flawed human being. At first, I blamed myself, and I felt ashamed about the latest and greatest blow to my ego. The blow of the truck was the culmination of a series of great personal losses. It seemed to me that my life had crumbled. The physical pain from my injuries was difficult, but the emotional pain was far worse. In a moment of clarity, I figured that theoretically, there had to be a way to accept and make peace with what happened to me. Realizing this possibility brought an immediate shift. It's not that my self-acceptance was instant or perfect. The gift was becoming more willing to cheer progress instead of demanding perfection. I wouldn't have learned these things. I wouldn't have received the gifts were it not for a lot of outside help. I experienced what I call my "it's a wonderful life" moment. People reached out from far and wide with love, encouragement, gifts, prayers, and money. I was given the precious gift of knowing that I am loved, and the gift of seeing that I had made a difference in some people's life. After this, I could not be critical of myself in quite the same way. The volume on those critical thoughts that have occupied my mind got turned down. I don't see life the same after my trauma. Some of the changes remain challenging. I'm trying to find the gift in all things, including hardship. The last post-traumatic spiritual gift I'll share was an integration of something I had heard a long time ago. A teacher, Harvey Jackins, he taught that human beings get a whale of a kick out of being alive. That I bought, that made sense. But he also said, if a person lived only a few moments, and those moments were spent in agony, he or she would still be fortunate to have lived. I didn't understand how he could say that. I had imagined he is going too far. Those tough days that I experienced in the intensive care unit, the way I clung to life when things seemed miserable, they brought his words within my reach. I'm not saying it's a fact. It's just a perspective that all life is a gift. Thank you for letting me share with you today.
Our Sunday service program and all of our programs here at Channing Church are possible because of financial gifts given to the church by our members, our friends, and our supporters. Please help support Channing Memorial Church by going to our website, www.channingchurch.org, and then scroll down on the home page to the Give tile. Click on that and then follow the directions to make a one-time or multiple-time donation. Thank you for your support. If you have found this service or our other services and programs interesting and meaningful to you, please come back next week and let a friend know about them and Channing Memorial Church. Our closing words are by Joseph Cleveland. May we hear the melody of life and find ourselves singing harmony. May we feel in our bones the rhythms of life and find ourselves dancing. So be it.